Good morning to you. Today is Thursday, 16th of July, 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. Yesterday, we dealt with the part of the machine that keeps the company safe. That is the system, which is the bottom of the model that we have in front of us today, which is the controls, the resilience. And today we're going to move to the left hand side of the advisory board operating model, which is the edge or your edge, your company edge. That's the transformation, the reinvention, the innovation, what makes your company relevant for not only for today's market, but also for next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And it's very important because the job or the work starts now. So this is where many times leadership are split. Some people say about move faster, others say protect the core. Yes, and both have advantages and disadvantages. But we are going to look at this today from the lenses of the growth of the company. So both, by the way, both sides are right, and both sides has or are dangerous if you may if left alone, because transformation is not about just changing everything. And this is a big mistake that sometimes you see in companies. They say, we're going to change everything. And there are so many projects at the same time that people get confused, frustrated, and pretty much drop the ball, as they say, because they say, well, I don't know what are we doing anymore. This is not the company that I came 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 5 years ago. This is a completely different company. I don't recognize the people, the organization, the strategy anymore. So what it is about changing the right things in the right order at the right time and speed, right? So bear in mind this concept: changing the right things in the right order at the right speed and time, right? Because you cannot do everything at the same time, going along, because at the same time you have to run the business. So it's very, very busy and very strenuous activities. It's training to do these things without having a very good plan before even launching the test module. And this is another mistake. It's not all in. You have to test certain portions and then you start to roll into different places. Now, edge, what I try to say, means the company sees change early, acts before it has to, and does not wait until the pressure remove its choices, right? So that's what I mean with edge. When you create environment or you adapt to the environment as a response, not as a reaction, because when you react, pretty much it's a journey process. So something happened, you react. But a response is something when you kick something, and particularly if you are very, very well trained to kick something, you can do very, very good things in terms of the precision where you are kicking and where you're putting that ball, right? So it's a games analogy, if you may. So let's take a look at three problems with this. Problem number one is that the pressure to change is real. Why I'm saying this? Because technology is moving, customer expectations are shifting, skills are changing, productivity pressure is rising. So the company may still be making money, right? So the revenue is still coming in, the company is still prosperous, etc., etc. But that doesn't mean that the current model is safe for the coming future. The problem number two is that change now comes with more scrutiny. Leaders are not only asked to move faster, they are asked to explain how much change the business can tolerate, right? So it's like a different exercise that used to be before. What risk is being taken, what return is expected, and what interventions will be needed if things go wrong. So you have to have a very good plan before doing the move. Problem number three is that the people side is now strategic, even more than ever. Transformation is not only system and technology. It changes roles, judgment, culture, skills, career path, and leadership behavior. If the board treats people as an afterthought, well, transformation slows or literally breaks. So in other words, imagine this, and I have this picture. So reinvention is less like a flipping a switch, like a turn on and off a light. It's more like changing the wheels of a moving train, right? So it can be done. It can be done at speed, but also you need a sequence, a process, a system, and skills to do that. You cannot do that like, oh, I'm going to change the wheel of a train. And I put a train because actually I think that clearly represents how heavy, difficult, and monstrous activity could be that with a moving train, right? Anyway, particularly for the tonnage that you see, there's this big carriages and machines that are very, very tons and tons and tons of steel and vapor. Anyway, so as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider is the following. The first thing, separate the core from the edges, right? Protect what already works. Do not put the crown jewels in the first trial run. Create a place where new ideas can be tested without risking the whole business. So the core keeps the company steady, but the edge tests where the future value may come from. The second thing to suggest is use the advisory board operating system, the model that we have in front of us, the asset lens properly. When we are talking about edge on this left hand side of the model, we look at strategy, performance, and brand. And let me explain a little bit how that works. The strategy chooses where to move. The performances proves whether the move is working, right? Is working or not working. And the brand tells the market that the future business, what the future business is building, right? So this is a branding, the preparation, anticipation of what's coming next. If you isolate things, for example, if you only work on the strategy, you get a big talk, right? So it's a big plan, nice presentations, everybody involved, but actually nothing happens. So if you only measure the performance, the risk is efficiency decline, because actually you are so obsessed with the performance, actually people start to get like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And if you only talk about the brand, you get the stories, but where is the delivery? Where people want to see if you let's say that you put a very enticing story, a very attractive story, and people go like, yeah, I love that. But then where's the substance if you don't have the measurement of the performance of that, or the delivery and the strategy that support that? So the three of them have to work together. The third thing I would suggest is treat transformation as capability, not one giant program. So not a panic response, as we mentioned, not a side project with a shiny name. Treat it as a repeatable ability to adapt without losing coherence. That means the board needs to ask questions, and questions are very good. It's not to challenge, it's not to defeat people, it's just to make sure that actually we cover all the angles as much as we can in our capacity. For example, which bets matters, which ones should be cut, which ones should be delayed, which ones should be doubled down, what capability is missing, or for example, what help us judge this properly, right? So that last question, particularly that one, what help us to judge this properly, is where the advisory board becomes useful, because the transformation milestones change it. So remember that when you're doing transformation or innovation, sometimes it's not a whole change. It might be 1%, 2%, 3%, because you don't want to go so far from the familiarity of your customers in relation to your brand, your product, your services, that they all of a sudden see your brand or your product or your service and say, this is not what I know, right? So the innovation, the genius innovation, sometimes come with a 2 or 3% change. That's all. And we have an example from Coca-Cola where the biggest innovation was one single change back at the time when the Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they were very close to each other. They just increased the price. And remarkably, they threefold the revenue, because the perception of the pricing was just the same product, etc. But say, but it's more, it's a different price tag from the competitors. It was perceived as a premium product, right? So look at this kind of little details that actually make the big differences. So, and current times, for example, with AI, one stage may need AI adoption, right? So remember that when AI, if you have faulty models or normalization of this is a way that we do things around here with not a precise workflow, operation procedures, etc. AI adoption, the only thing that is going to do amplify the problems and increase the gaps. So you have with the AI, you have to be very careful. Another might be commercial repositioning, like I mentioned, the example from Coca-Cola. Another may be need operating redesign. Another may be a market entry, how we enter in this market that actually we haven't penetrated before. And another may need a performance improvement. So how good are we doing? So the capability should match the milestones in terms of the thinking, the advising, the execution. Not every transformation problem needs the same advisor, by the way. Not every stage needs the same board shape. So a rotating advisory board helps the business bring the right expertise, whatever you need now, and then change the mix of advisors when the problem changes in the coming future, right? So I can say the following, or the advisory board can say the following. This is kind of thing that the good dosage of challenges and pressure to understand how the business can shape or reshape the form. So, for example, the business wants change, but the bed is not clear. So then what do you do in those cases? Or maybe the core is protected, but the edges is not being tested properly. So you need to test the edges of your core business. Or like the team has too many initiatives and not enough sequence, right? That is a big problem. Now, what do you gain working with me? There's three things: business outcome, differentiators, and risk reduction. In terms of business outcome is the managed reinvention, meaning sharper choices, better sequencing, stronger leadership alignment, and faster movement where the return is real, not just as a test without a return. So if you are not testing against a business outcome, then why you're testing that? What is this, right? So the differentiator is a rotating international advisory board built around the change in front of you. The issues is AI, market entry, repositioning, operating redesign, or performance improvement. The capabilities match to the milestone. So we can change members every 6 months, every year, to make sure that we match the expertise, the experience, and the network of those advisory members into the milestone of your company. And the risk reduction is strategic drift and waste transformation spend. So the business avoids being the big consulting overhead, the long talent locked in, and the mistakes of keeping the same expert in the place for every phase of the organization. And that creates a group thinking that actually pretty much start to drift instead of decisively going towards business outcomes. Now, one action you can take today, and it's doable in 30 minutes or less. And let me put our visual aid, our designed how you can measure this. It's very simple. Write down 3 transformation bets on one page. Only 3. Don't do everything. You're testing the edges here. You have to go towards a business outcomes. It cannot be like, we're going to try this and see the spaghetti test. Like throw a spaghetti through the wall and see what sticks. That's a good idea sometimes, but actually it's better idea to say this is a business outcome. So what we should test against that business outcome, and then decide what to cut, what to delay, and what to double down with, right? So in that order, so you can start to understand and have a better idea what your strategy and your transformation is going through. So if you cannot do that very, very clearly, probably the board is still mixing strategy with a wishful thinking. So you're trying spaghettis to the wall, to everything, rather than going specifically towards something that actually have a business outcome. So let's pause it here for today and reconvene tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll bring the whole week together. So scaling, capital controls, and reinvention only work when the board has a way to join them into one operating system, which is the model that I presented earlier. Now, if you are a founder, a chair, non-executive director, CEO, or anybody in the C-suite of organization, a strategic sponsor, and you need to reinvent the business without breaking the core, let's have a 30-minute chat so I can understand where you're coming from, where you are, where you want to go, and we can design an advisory board around the specific objectives, the milestone to match the expertise, the experience, and the network of these members to help you. So have a great day and talk to you tomorrow. Thank you and bye-bye.